What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me once again. I'm finally going to catch up on all the reviews I've missed, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it. I am going to say one thing though, and that is, if at any point I actually start gaining a fan base or anything, and they come back to this video and then they're like, oh, you're just ripping off the quick movie review segment that Chris Stuckman does. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. I am taking the thing that he does and I'm doing it here. I'm not hiding that. That is exactly what this is. I'm just calling it rapid reviews. Just a different name, but same concept. So, congratulations, Sherlock. You're a genius. Good job. All right, let's go. These are going to be in no specific order. These are not the order I saw them in. They are not best to worst. This is just the movies in list form. So first we have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, directed by Quentin Tarantino. I was really late to watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I didn't watch it until it was already nominated for Oscars. So I was ultra late to the train on this one. But I gotta say, I did really enjoy it. I thought the direction from Tarantino was top notch, which really isn't anything to be surprised by at this point. Tarantino really is in the masterclass, or at least deserves to be brought up in conversations of masterclass directors, at least in my opinion. The performances by Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt were really good. I personally didn't think that Brad Pitt, though, was good enough to be nominated for, much less win, the Best Supporting Actor Oscar that he did, but hey, that's just me. I thought DiCaprio gave a really great performance though, especially during this one segment where we're watching him shoot part from the show that his character is in. The subplot with Sharon Tate, played by Margot Robbie, was kind of boring though. I understand why it was in there because of the time period, and it was really building up to the ending, and so you wanted to follow Sharon Tate around so that you could kind of get connected to her character so that you would be anticipating the ending, but she didn't really do a whole lot. There's a big portion of this film where she's just watching her own movie in a theater. It was just so long, and it really bored me. Tate's subplot is the only thing that bored me in this movie. I felt like it could have been cut back a lot shorter because a lot of it just seemed really bloated. And because of that, the film does drag slightly at a couple of certain points. But I'm still going to give Once Upon a Time in Hollywood an A-. Next we have Frozen 2, which is a sequel that I never wanted to happen. I never wanted to see this. The first Frozen movie was such a cultural, worldwide phenomenon, and it was just everywhere, and it wasn't even that great of a movie. Let's be honest, it's not that good. Tangled is better. All hail Tangled. But in this one, I thought it was a lot better. I did like it a lot more than the first one. It seemed slightly more mature than the first one did, which is really what you want from a sequel, especially a sequel to a kid's film, because it seemed like it grew with the children who watched the first one. Now they're slightly older, they're more mature, and this movie is for them. And I thought that was a really good route to take for it. The characters are a lot more likable too. Elsa has a lot more to do. She's more likable. She's more well-rounded. This whole movie is about trying to find out why she has these ice powers. The songs in it are really good too. There's a couple of really standout songs. There's Lost in the Woods, which is kind of like this 80s power ballad, which was really weird, but I thought it was really funny and I liked it a lot. And Olaf has a song, which is essentially just the embodiment of this meme. And I thought it was so funny, and I was cracking up in the theater the whole time. At the end, the resolution, when you find the answer to the question of why Elsa is this way, I didn't really feel fulfilled, I guess. I just was like, oh, wait, what? I even had to ask Erica, on the way home, so, is this what happened? Is this why this happened this way? Oh, okay. So I did like it a lot more than the first one, and I'm going to give Frozen 2 a B+. Dracula on Netflix is presented in the exact same way that the BBC show Sherlock is, in which it's one season and the season is 3 episodes long, but each episode is like an hour and a half, so it's essentially like 3 films. It's basically a film trilogy, and so that's how I'm going to review it. So with the first entry, right off the bat, I have to say that the guy who plays Dracula, I don't know, I'm just gonna call him Bang, because that's the only thing in his name that I can pronounce. But Bang is incredible as Dracula. He's super charming. He's kind of funny. Like, he has this real quippiness and kind of sass to him, and it really makes you like him. Like, you want to like him as a person, even though you know this is Dracula. He's like evil and darkness incarnate, but he just draws you in, which is exactly what Dracula is supposed to do. He's charming, he's smooth, he's suave, he's cunning, and he really brings that across at full volume. He was great. While I never read the book, I tried to read the book, but I thought it was just way too dense and I really couldn't get into it. But I didn't read the book. My favorite adaptation of Dracula is gotta be a tie between Francis Ford Coppola's film and the stage production, which I have seen several times. And so going off of those two things, they made some huge changes from the source material in this, from gender swapping one of the main characters to making one character go through something that I know they do not go through at all. They do these really big changes to main characters, but they keep it interesting in a way and make these characters likable enough, well-rounded enough, and acted and performed enough that it doesn't seem like just an attention grabber. It doesn't seem like a way to just try to get people talking. It seems like an actual, like, creative decision that they decided to do to make this story their own, and it worked really well, and I thought they did a really good job with that. But the campiness did get a little too much at times, where they would do certain camera tricks or just make certain effects. Like, at one point, a fly lands directly on somebody's eye. They blink, and now the fly is, like, behind their eye for some reason. It was really weird, and I didn't understand it at all. So I'm going to give the first installment of Dracula a B+. Dracula 2 goes down a little bit in quality. Bang is still fantastic as Dracula. He really kicks up the charm in this one. He's on a boat through 90% of it, trying to get to England from Transylvania, and he is charming every single person on this boat like it is nothing, and it's really enjoyable to watch. My main problem with this one is that it seems like filler, which there really shouldn't be any filler when you essentially have a trilogy of films that you're working on right now. Right now.
Are you saying meow?
You stop laughing right now.
You really have to keep everything going from A to B to C all the way to D without any going off or variations at all. And this one really seems like filler, and it's a little boring. There are a couple of parts where I was just sitting there and I didn't care about what was happening. And the ending made my jaw drop. It could have been really cool if they do something really interesting with it, but just the initial shock of what they do was just mind-blowing and not in a great way. But I enjoyed it enough that I'm going to give this one just a slight step down to a B-. Dracula 3, on the other hand, is an absolute shit show. I was texting my aunt through this whole thing, just like going off. Like, what are they thinking? What are they doing right now? I don't want to spoil what it is that they do. So, like, if you don't want any spoilers, if you don't even want to know what the plot for this third entry is, then go to this timestamp. I'm going to say what it is real quick. Right now, they go to present day. They go from, like, when Dracula is set And when he falls off the boat in the second entry, he wakes back up in present day. Now he is in the 21st century. We've seen plenty of that, like in the 2000s with like Blade and like Dracula 2000. It was a decent idea, but poorly executed. Everything that they did with it, they made the wrong decision. This one is complete camp. I can't take a single thing in this one seriously. The overacting is ridiculous. And the ending just doesn't make any sense. The way they wrap it all up, the way it all finishes, I don't get it. So this one takes a drastic step down from the first two, and it is getting a D+. Simply because Bang is still great as Dracula. He is still charming, he is still witty, and he is loving every single second of being on screen. He is eating it up. And he's still entertaining to watch, but like, that's it. And this is a big one. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker was a movie that I dreaded seeing because so many people said it was bad. But I will say that the action is really fun. There's a lot of really cool battle scenes, space battle scenes, and the effects are great. But as I've said before, great effects are nothing surprising, especially coming from Disney, who has enough money to rule the world if they wanted to. There actually is some really cool cinematography and some really, really beautiful shots. It's more than likely mostly done with CGI, but that doesn't take away from the fact that these shots are really cool and visually stimulating. And some of the ideas that they put forward, some of the character ideas, some of the story ideas that they put forward are really good if they followed through with them. But instead, J.J. Abrams just wanted to correct everything that Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi. While I wasn't the biggest fan of The Last Jedi, I look back on it and I'm like, you know what? There were some really cool ideas in there. There was just some stuff that I didn't like. But JJ apparently hated it because it was like every decision that was made in this film was just to wipe away everything that The Last Jedi did, even stuff that was some really, really great and fascinating character decisions and ideas. He just wanted to get away with it, and that's the main problem with this movie. It's full of pointless filler. A main bulk of the movie is just a scavenger hunt for a couple of MacGuffins just so that they can get to the end. There's side characters that we don't care about because we just met them and they're barely in this movie, but they really want you to care for them. And the ending, the last line specifically, legitimately made me mad. Like, I was angry walking out of the theater. So I'm going to give Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker a C-. The Irishman, directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci. This is a film that I was super excited for, and I, again, was late to watching it because, one, I'm busy. I don't have a lot of time to just watch a 3.5 hour long movie. I don't have a 2. That's the main reason. But I am glad that I finally got around to watching this because the performances are just absolutely incredible, which is no surprise from these legacy actors being directed by a legacy director. Al Pacino is just larger than life doing his Pacino thing, and he's a blast to watch. Robert De Niro, there were a couple of moments that he seemed a little awkward, but that's not really his fault. It's mainly because the de-aging that they put on him. He looks like a younger De Niro, but he still moves like current old De Niro, so that was a little weird. And Joe Pesci was just chilling in this. Like, we're used to seeing Joe Pesci like being big and yelling and swearing a whole lot and just going ballistic, especially in movies like Goodfellas or even Home Alone. But in this, he's very calm. He's very cool. He's very collected. He just seems like he controls the entire room. And like, I feel like this Pesci is even scarier than the like manic, just exploding Pesci from Goodfellas. Speaking of the de-aging on De Niro is actually really good. There are a couple of moments, a couple of shots where De Niro looks kind of CGI. He looks a little synthetic, but for the most part, it works really well. I will say that it does drag slightly, but you're gonna have that in a movie that's 3.5 hours long. But other than that, The Irishman was fantastic, and I'm going to give it an A. The Lighthouse was a movie that people kept telling me to watch. People kept telling me was great, but I really wasn't sure about it. I didn't know what to think, so I went into it really nearly blind, especially since all I knew about it was the bare minimum of the plot. But I am glad to say that it was really good. I was fascinated by the entire story, the entire plot, and the performances were outstanding from Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. There's some really cool shots in this, especially considering that the movie was made in 35mm black and white film stock in this aspect ratio that just looks like this film came right out of like the 30s or the 40s. There are a couple of moments in the film that are kind of hard to grasp. I feel like it's mainly because I don't really know a lot of the mythology that went into the research writing this film, from sea tales and folklore, but stuff like mermaids and sea creatures and just folk tales of that time. So because of that, it did seem a little all over the place, but like I said, that might just be because of my own ignorance involving that time period. But ultimately, I'm going to say that The Lighthouse gets an A-. 1917 is a film that came out not too long ago. It's probably the most current thing that I'm reviewing right now. It is a World War I era film, and it follows two English soldiers, and it is shot to look as if it is all one continuous shot. And I am always amazed whenever a film is able to do that and do it well, because it is really hard to do it effectively and make it look good at the same time. But I will say that they do a damn good job. I left this film just finding it absolutely breathtaking. It was incredible to watch. There was actual good cinematography, which usually in movies that look like this, the way that the camera is held and the way that the shots look are typically very basic, very straightforward, but this had really great cinematography, and I'm sure that just had to be a pain to do, but they did it, and they did it damn well. And the performances in this were incredible. There were a couple of moments that almost brought me to tears right there in the theater. And just like being surprised by the stellar cinematography due to how this film was shot, I was equally surprised by all of the vast sets that they had to go through and maneuver around while making it look like this. There were a couple of moments where I could tell that there were cuts, that they cut it during like a transition with a camera swipe, but they obviously can't shoot this entire film in one legitimate long take. So I can't fault them for that, but it was fluid enough that for half a second, I second guessed myself on whether or not there was actually a cut there. And so for the one and only of this list and the first of the year, I'm going to give 1917 an A+. And last but definitely not least, we come to Marriage Story, a story about two married people going through a divorce. And it stars Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, and this is, without a doubt, the saddest film I've seen in a while. And it's not sad in the way that it seems like the film crew, the director, and writer are just trying to make you sad for the sake of being sad. This seems like a very personal story. It seems like the writer might be writing from his own personal story. Like he probably went through this. I don't know, I'm just guessing, but just how real and grounded and honest this film seems, that's what I'm being led to assume. The performances from Driver and Johansson are just gut-wrenching, but also hilarious, and they just seem like real people. These are the realest characters I've seen in a hot minute. The only negative thing I have about this film is that certain characters are just absolutely terrible, and I don't like them at all. And I don't know if that's the point, if I'm supposed to find them so irrehensible. Is that a word? I'll just say terrible. Like Laura Dern plays Scarlett Johansson's lawyer in the divorce, and there's There's certain scenes where she just says stuff, and at one point I was watching it, and I just actually just had to like lean back and just rub my eyes for a minute, because what she was saying was just so ridiculous, and I couldn't do it. I didn't like Laura Dern in this. Her character, not her performance. Her performance was fine. The rewatchability is kind of low, but that's only because of how real and sad it is. But I am going to give Marriage Story an A. Well, that wraps up my list. I do also want to say, though, that Cats gets an F. I didn't see it, but I'm just gonna give it an F on principle, because, like, fuck Cats. I hate that musical. Alright, guys, well, what did you think about this rapid review list? Is there anything you agreed or disagreed with? Whatever it is, let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to check out my social media and my second channel that I just made called Woodward Performs. It's where I will be uploading videos that are behind the scenes vlogs for any theater or film productions that I'm on. I can't start uploading stuff there until we're closer to the release date, because that's just how the contract works. But go ahead and give that a subscribe. The links to all of that will be down in the description. But before you do that, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe here so that I can see you guys next time.